Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ashton Jeanlewis. This is the first of what I hope to be many episodes of a podcast that we're going to call the Big Man Bias. I'm Ashton Jeanlewis, chaser for the Houston Cosmos Quidditch Club, and I really, the eighth man asked me to make this podcast happen, and off the top, I had no idea what it would really be like or what it would really be. But as there is no Quidditch going on really in these sports in general, in the grand scheme of things, I think it's best that we learn more about the community that is the Quidditch community across the world, across the globe, and really right here in Texas, because I am from Houston, Texas, like I mentioned before, and talk to some of the very unique athletes who have found their way onto the Quidditch pitch on an assortment of teams. And I dare say it's hard to find a more unique athlete than the one that I have here for my first episode. She is a bodybuilder, former member of the University of Texas Longhorns. She played for AQ, played for the varsity team, University of Texas. She's a current member of Texas Hill Country Heat, one of the best teams in the world, if you look at it in the grand scheme of things, and one of the best teams in the Southwest region here in U.S. Quidditch in terms of its all standings and everything like that. I have with me Olive Jim Daniels. How you doing, Olive?
Hi, Ashton. I'm doing good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No doubt. And Olive, we want to use this podcast to really, like I said, explore more about the culture and really the community that is involved with Quidditch, because at the end of the day, I think the one thing that draws people to sports is the connection that they can build with different athletes. And there's something to be said about the fact that I talk to people who live in different countries on a regular basis off the simple fact that we bond over the fact that we play Quidditch. Shout out to Jane Arnett, one of my quarantine friends that I've made, because we're all stuck inside. So I'm constantly on Instagram, and apparently she is too. And we talk back and forth. But Olive, you're a busy woman. You got a lot of things. You're making a lot of moves happen on a regular basis. I got a couple of questions for you about really from like beginning to the point where we are right now. And I'll start at the very beginning. Give me a preview of like what your family is like, because you've gone on to really compete at a high level in two different sports, right? Both of them very difficult. You play for an elite level Quidditch team, and on top of that, you are a competitor in terms of bodybuilding. How did that like come about? Is there somebody in your family that really kind of got you into it, or did you find it all on your own?
Okay, that's a great question. So just a little bit about where I'm from. I am originally from Nigeria, and I grew up there, and my family moved to Houston, Texas, while I was still in middle school. Instead of transferring schools at that time, I made the decision to continue in boarding school in Nigeria. And I moved to Houston after I graduated in 2014. And that's when I started at Baylor. And so just throughout my history, I've played in a lot of different sports. But what really got me onto bodybuilding was just seeing my sister and her results with strength training. We've always been athletic. We've always loved sports. I played volleyball, I ran track, I did swimming, a little bit of field hockey. I'm not going to say that was like a real thing, but like I played it a little bit in high school. And there was also soccer, which I had to stop because my school did not have a soccer team. So I really have like a long history of just sports and fitness and activity. And it's been a theme throughout my entire life and with my family as well. But when my sister went to college, she started strength training, and she started lifting weights, and I saw how her physique transformed, and I was inspired. And so we began strength training after I moved over here for college, and after a while, she decided to compete in bodybuilding. She'd seen some friends compete, and we've been personal training on the side for a while, because that's what we love to do, help people get healthy and make better decisions about their fitness and just life goals in general. But she decided to compete to just help personal training. And so she did, and she happened to do really, really well. She won her very first show. And that was like a defining moment for me, just being in that audience and in that background, feeling the energy of all the people around. It was like, I don't know, just like being like a kid in a candy store, but just with inspiration, just being surrounded by a lot of people that you can clearly see have like a lot of goals, share the same similar like discipline and work ethic. And it was really inspiring. And so when I saw her on stage, I started doing poses like she did, but I did it all jokingly. And so she went ahead.
That's how it starts, right? It's all a joke. Until we're not eating for 3 straight days so we can work on our vascularity, right? Yeah, no.
Yeah, it all starts out as a joke. I was like, yeah, that's her thing. You know, my sister's a bodybuilder, whatever. Like, I work out. I like to work out, and I'm a personal trainer, but, you know, bodybuilding is her thing. But then she went ahead to, so the first show that she did was a national qualifying show. It was a San Antonio Classic in 2018. And then she won her class in that show. And then she competed in 4 more shows after that, and she won all of them as well. And she also got the national qualification at those shows as well.
Okay, Olive, can you tell the story about the Arnold Classic? Like, I know it takes a while, but it is insane how that all shook out for her and everything like that. Can you just kind of like dive a little bit into it? The Arnold is a highly competitive bodybuilding competition put on by, you guessed it, Arnold Schwarzenegger, the most famous bodybuilder on the face of the planet, right? Next to like Ronnie Coleman and a couple other guys, but Arnold Schwarzenegger made that transition from bodybuilding into movies and theater. And at one point, if you will recall, the strangest timeline we've ever existed in, he was the governor of California. It's just insane to think about at one point. But anyway, you lift enough weights, that's how far it can take you.
Yeah, so, the story with the Arnold was actually, it's kind of crazy. So when she competed in all those other shows where she got the nationals qualification, it turned out that she could not go to nationals. So she had already registered for nationals in Miami at the end of that year, and she bought her like ticket, like booked her flight, everything. She was prepared to go, and then she found out that she could not compete because she was not a citizen of the United States.
Wow.
That was like a pivotal point because she couldn't go to nationals, so she couldn't. By the way, nationals is when you go to compete for a pro card. So at nationals, you have different categories of bodybuilders, both men and women, and they're all separated into different classes grouped by height. And so, for example, you could have people who are 5'4" to 5'6" in class A, and you could have people who are 5'7" to 5'10" in class B, all the way through like L. It depends on the show. But at nationals, it's usually really, really big. And so every winner of their class at nationals wins a pro card, and then they can start competing for money at the elite level. And so for her, she could not go to nationals, but there were a couple other options. There are a few shows each year, maybe like 3 in North America that you can go and compete as an international, and these are open to everyone. So for nationals, you do have to qualify to go, but if you win your class, then you get a pro card. But for the Arnold Classic, for the pros, it's invitation only. And so for the amateurs, it's open to anybody, but in order to win a pro card, you not only have to win your class, you have to win the entire category. So you have to win everything to get a pro card. And so these are the options that she had. But, you know, she was determined. Since she couldn't go to nationals, she decided to do it. And I remember that I was having midterms during that time. Like, literally remember, like, it was so busy. And so she went alone. She was all by herself, and it was like right in the middle of school. There was a lot going on. And she actually got kicked out of her hotel room by the hotel people because they had provided like subpar service, and she called them out on it, and they were upset about it. And so instead of like making it right, they just said she was being disruptive. And so it was a lot. It was like really emotional. But the next day, like after she went on stage, and then they had finals the next day, and then you could see it, like it was streaming live. But she like texted into the group chat, and she was like, "Guess what, bitches?" And I already knew when she said that. She was like, guess what, bitches? And I was like, and I think I was volunteering that day because it was like during that week, but finals was on a Saturday. And so I was literally volunteering. And I think we were like picking up trash. Or maybe it was Explore UT. It was at Explore UT. And I was in a room, like an auditorium full of people. And I was like, I looked kind of crazy screaming to myself. But I was so excited because I knew how much that meant. I knew how hard she had worked. And like, it was really, really rewarding. And it was just kind of like, like she's amazing. Like she did this. And so at that point, it was like she had just come back from the Arnold's and she got this huge trophy. It's just like almost the size of my stomach.
I will say this: when it comes to like bodybuilding, they know how to do trophies and medals right. Like the medals, gigantic. And as an athlete who's never been very good at many sports or anything like that, if I win a trophy, I want it to be in cup form, and that's one of my biggest gripes with. So I'll be honest, I'll be upfront. Every time I've ever won a trophy for winning a tournament in Quidditch so far, none of it has been a cup. So I'm just like, well, what am I supposed to drink out of? It's like a cool because like I'm just saying, like we look at like the history of sports trophies. The Larry O'Brien trophy for the NBA is a hoop with a basketball on. You can't drink out of that. It looks cool, but you can't drink out of it. Rumor has it that it has like a nacho cheese warmer in the base of it. If you saw the commercial a long time ago. You have the MLB championship trophy, and it's just a bunch of flags on a little circle. It looks cool. Can't drink out of it. The only cool trophy, like hands down GOAT trophy in all of sports, the Stanley Cup, because it is a cup, and they take it and it has horrifying stories of all the things that have been inside of it. And I just want a trophy that I can drink out of. It's been my dream to one, actually be good enough at a sport to win it, and then two, for them to hand me a cup that I can drink out of as a child. And it still hasn't happened. I've been chasing that dream.
It sounds like you need to get bodybuilding. It
sounds like I need to join bodybuilding. About that, Olive. Your culture frowns upon carbs a lot, and I'm a big supporter. I'm a huge supporter of carbs. All carbs matter. That's my thing, man. And not that one, not matter like that. Because let's be honest, there's healthy carbs out there that I'm not about.
Yeah.
There's healthy carbs, but pizza and all that kind of stuff. I need that. But yeah, we talk about like the like you mentioned, the trophy was sick and everything. I just wanted to do like a little side bias there.
Yeah.
Like bias towards cup style trophies. That is my bias.
Yeah. Well, this one actually wasn't even a cup, but this one was like a statue. It literally looked like it was like her figure. Like, so that's her division. Yeah, figure. She's a figure athlete. And so kind of the way bodybuilding is, there are different like levels, and bikini is kind of like the entry level where it's not as much muscle and it's not as much leanness. And then you go up to figure, and then women's physique, for women. And so she does figure, and I do figure as well. But yeah, so it was like a figure woman, and it looked amazing. And so I was just really, really excited. And at that point, she called me out. She was like, so remember when I did my show and you were like, this is amazing. Yeah, maybe I'll do one next year. Yeah, next year. And I was like, oh, I got it. Yeah, it's like, okay, well, I guess next year is here. I guess I really got to do this. And so we picked a show that was in June. It was for June 14th, and it was in Austin, Texas. And I was like, okay, this is perfect. I'll do this one show, just do it and know I can do it and like be done with it. It's bodybuilding is her thing, not mine still. And
you say that, the evidence says different, but okay, go ahead.
I mean, to be honest though, when I attended her first show, like I knew that this was a thing that I would like definitely want to keep being a part of. Like I didn't think like I might compete for sure, but I was like, this is awesome. I like watching people compete, like just learning a lot about it. And the fact that my sister is so competitive and like loves to learn, I learned so much from her all the time. And so she got really good at a sport that she had only been competing in for a few months because she did the work. She spent hours watching the best people, learning how to pose, doing reviews, just literally when you're hungry, you can tell, you do the work and you do what you got to do. And so when I was put in that position, I got started on prep, and I'll be honest, like I wasn't like 100% committed until May. Like I started prep in March, and I started like watching what I was eating. I started being a lot more consistent at the gym, and then I could see like some changes, and then finals came along, and everything just kind of went whoop, kind of went out the window. And when it was like a month, like to my show date, and I was like, oh my goodness, like it's a month, like it's literally just so close.
Right.
How am I gonna feel? Like, because I hate to lose. And so she asked me if I had thought about myself just standing on stage, and I was like, no. And she looked at me like I was kind of crazy and said, you definitely need to. You absolutely have to do that. You got to visualize it. How do you expect to be in a moment and you don't even know what it looks like? And so I was like, okay, you're right. And I wrote it down in my prep journal, and I remember like referencing it later, but I wrote down about how like I literally visualized myself like collecting my trophy. Like I pictured myself on stage, and when it happened later on, like I could see myself like in the same picture as I had pictured it, just kind of like stepping into it, like, okay, yeah, this is exactly how I said it should be. And so, yeah, that was how my first show went.
So I was going to ask, so did you feel like the visualization actually gave you the confidence to kind of believe that you could win, or did you feel like it was just something that's like, it made it possible, which is, in sports, everything's impossible until somebody does it, right? Like the 900 was impossible until Tony Hawk did it twice at the X Games, right? So, like, how did it feel for you when you finally visualized it? Did it help you going into the situation?
I think it was a little bit of both. Like, I think that, like, when people prepare for like any kind of competition, there's a lot that you put into it. You put in the work, you put in your mental energy, but that commitment to this is going to happen, and it's kind of like just kind of promising yourself, just letting yourself know that, yeah, this is how it's going to turn out. And I think I see it as a commitment. It's like making sure that you want this outcome. It means you'll do whatever it takes to get there. And so whenever I was like doing my cardio, or like I would have like, have to wake up early, or like, just not eat. Yeah, exactly. Not eat. Like I was like looking at like, cause I have a food Instagram. It's called Lo Comidas Sanas, because I like Spanish, and it's like a play on crazy healthy food. But I was like just on my food page all the time, just staring at food, bookmarking recipes. And then after a while, it got to that point where I just wanted to like smell good food. So I was like chefing it up for my family.
Man. We've all been there. When we know we can't have it, just like, I just want a whiff. I just want to like, I just want a whiff of it, so my brain can do the rest and like visualize it. Yeah,
exactly. That's exactly what prep was like. And I think for me, like just that entire process of getting to my first show, it really just taught me like you can actually do what you set your mind to. But it did, and like bodybuilding as a whole have showed me that like you need hard work, and there's like no shortcuts. And that's kind of a lesson that I've had like thrown out my entire life, but this kind of like showed it to me, because in bodybuilding, it doesn't matter how athletic you are. It doesn't matter how good your DNA is or your genes or whatever people say. Like, if you're not putting in the work, it will show 100%. You can't lie. You can lie to yourself all you want, but on stage, you can't lie. And so
sounds like another sport that I play.
It gets, for real, like it shows out there, like, so like, I mean, I feel like with a lot of other sports, sometimes you can get by on like more of your ability, right, if you have like, more like talent. But like with bodybuilding, if you mess up your diet, like we can tell you're not going to be lean. Like if you're not doing the right show, exactly. So I couldn't mess up. Like I had to face myself in a way that I hadn't ever before.
And Olive, I'll take this moment and I'll ask you this question. Sorry if I divert you from the point you were making, but like you mentioned, like there's this intense pressure, right? to make sure that you're staying on point, and it's an all day type thing. It's not like in Quidditch where it's until you get on the pitch, right? And you got to be perfect when you're on the pitch, right? And preparation is important. Preparation is key for you because it has to, not only do you have to, be a part of the preparation, do the work and everything like that, but it has to show itself. Like physically, it has to show itself. How do you stop yourself from beating yourself down and on days when you're not exactly feeling it in the gym, or days when I know there's days when I try and go in there and lift heavy and my legs act like they've never squatted a single day in their life, right? And there's days when you try and do it with curls. How do you work on the negative thoughts that creep into everybody's mind that kind of tear them down? How do you push those out, keep them out, or even when they do get into your mind, how do you prevent them from deterring you from your ultimate goal?
Okay, yeah, so that's a really, really good question. And I think this is where that visualization I was talking about earlier comes into play. So if you're starting to have doubts and you've already had this idea in your head, you've already seen the picture where you achieve this goal, you need to go back to that picture and hold on to it. So it's like, remember why you started. Remember why you're doing this. You need to have a why. And if your why isn't strong enough, you're going to fall off. That's just... it's like kind of everything with life. If your why isn't strong enough, then, it just won't fall through.
Right. And like you were saying before, the dedication to the craft and everything that goes with it. And we mentioned up until this point, we talked about your athletic background, played soccer, volleyball, field hockey for like a hot second, and came here. Now, I have to ask this question. Your sister got you into bodybuilding. How did they trick you into playing Quidditch? I love hearing these stories. How did they bamboozle you into riding on a broom and one, getting tackled by like dudes and women and stuff like that in a full contact sport, and then convince you to stick around?
See, I love this question because it really, really does getting to part of why this whole podcast was started, because it helps break those stereotypes, right? Like the fact that I had to get tricked into playing Quidditch. There was no tricking involved, right? I walked by because I'm a Harry Potter nerd, and then I was like, oh, they're doing some Harry Potter shit. Okay.
Olive, what's your favorite book? There's only one right answer, but I'll listen. What?
Ooh, I can't say there's one right answer, but my favorite book is Goblet of Fire.
Oh, okay, that was the right answer. Cool. I'm just making sure we're all on the same page. I have a slightly messed up question to ask you. When you read Cedric Diggory's character, did you think he was white? Because he was, when I first read it, I was super, and this is me feeding in the stereotype, so you can call me out all you want on Twitter at the Ashton J or FB_playbook. Those are 2 Twitter accounts. I read super charismatic guy, popular kid, really good athlete, the cool guy, and I was like, that's gotta be the one black guy, one of 5 black guys at Hogwarts. And then he was not in the films, obviously. And I was just kind of did I misread the book, or did somebody not do a good job of what writers call marking the character? Let me know. Let me know on Twitter. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm right. I'm just wondering, Olive, did you ever at any point think Cedric Diggory was not a British white kid?
Honestly, I don't know if I remember. What you describe makes me feel like I probably had that thought. But, it's kind of like with Snape. I just remember that I did not expect Snape to look how he did. But as soon as, I watched the movies, I got over it really quickly.
Right. That's how you can that's how the only way you can picture him ever, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I feel you.
So, yeah, it's hard for me to, remember what I saw Cedric as before. But, I feel like you might be onto something there.
The name Cedric threw me off. That was my biggest thing, too.
Right. I think you're right, though. Cedric.
I'm just saying, every part, when I explain it to people the way I just explained it to you, and I was like, also, his name is Cedric. And they're like...
Yeah, no, the Cedric is no, you're right.
Yeah, I'm like, Cedric Diggory was supposed to be black. I was just making sure. But shout out to our black representation in Hogwarts and Blaze, who's probably, one of the worst guys in the entire book, but whatever. Anyway... You were talking about how you didn't have to be tricked into playing Quidditch. You are a huge nerd, and you, like myself, know what the greatest book in the Harry Potter series is, and that is Goblet of Fire. But yeah, as you were saying.
Yeah, so I was actually walking by where they were playing Quidditch at Baylor, my freshman year. And my roommate and I were just walking by. They practiced right next to our dorms, actually. And I was like, what is going on there? Because I saw people with, sticks between their legs. And then my roommate said, I heard that we're playing Quidditch. And I was like, Quidditch? And because my roommate and I, like, we instantly bonded because we both love Harry Potter too.
Right,
so we were both
right.
like, oh my God, Quidditch. And so we called out to them, like, what's this about? And they were like, come to the interest meeting, or like Tuesdays, Thursdays, whatever. And so I never like actually went for like until like the interest meeting happened like a couple weeks later. But my roommate's boyfriend, who didn't even go to Baylor at the time, like her boyfriend at the time, who was not a student at Baylor, played with them a couple times, and he was like, yo, this is a lot of fun. And she was like, he's actually getting good. And I was like, Kyle.
Right.
And I was like, okay. So after I went to the interest meeting, I went to like tryouts, and I started playing, and I was like, oh my God, what is this sport? Like, I'm bad at a sport. Like, what is all this? Like, there's so much like involved. And because I have like, a really, really short attention span. I have really long-term memory, but a short attention span. And so, like, my thoughts are, like, always going all over the place. So, like, Quidditch was, like, a lot, like, going on at once. So I felt like, yeah.
Quidditch at the very least is 5 games going on at one time, and that's before the snitch comes
chaos.
out.
It's beautiful chaos.
Yes, I'm not going to lie, but I'm going into my 5th year. Who knows what's going to happen if we actually get to play in this upcoming season, but I still have no idea what the hell's going on. So... the level of confusion. Level of confusion is very high, but you understand it a little bit more every single year. And the greatest gift you can have is understanding that you don't understand. But yes, you mentioned you started off at Baylor. Eventually, you end up at one of the most rigorous programs, and I mean programs, in all of college Quidditch in terms of the University of Texas Longhorns, where they I'll let you explain it. What's the training program like detailed like for the University of Texas?
I love this question. UT has a very, very structural program, and like you said, it's a program. Like, there's like Quidditch clubs and everything else. But like UT takes Quidditch seriously, and UT treats Quidditch as a sport and treats the athletes as athletes. So like everything you would expect in a regular team, like you have that in Quidditch at UT. And so while I was there under the tutelage of Simone and his very
Shout out
rigorous...
to Simone Wren, straight out of League City, Texas, just outside of Houston. I did not know that. That freaked me out when Hank and everybody told me. They were like, yeah, we went to high school with Simone Wren. So like, Simone, who was like one of the most dominant Quidditch players probably of our time and maybe even of all time, who mysteriously just said like, I don't want to play Quidditch anymore, and disappeared. But before that led the University of Texas to a national championship. So no, subtle flex from Simone.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Simone, like I explained a little bit of my athletic background before, but what was really important for me while I played at UT was getting to experience just being on a team, like with Simone in charge. So when I played sports back in Nigeria, it wasn't like organized. It wasn't like structured or anything. And so we basically relied on our own talent, and we had fun. And that was like what it was like. And so if you're competitive, it was really just because you were really good. And so there wasn't much direction. And so I've funneled through a lot of my life with raw talent. But then I feel like while I played under Simone, I had to learn how to like follow instructions, like follow rules, like, like there's a plan. And the way I think of Quidditch at UT is that it's calculated. And so the fact that like UT won so many times, it didn't happen by accident. Success is not accidental. Like all the hours, all the work, everything that they put in, it was like just trying to account for as many factors as possible. And that's the best you can do when you're preparing for something. And sometimes, there's something that you might miss out on. And that's what you do when you want to win. You go back and you learn and you get better. And so that was one thing that I really, really value that I learned at UT, just like learning a process of hard work and learning to love that process. And one thing I love to say about like loving the process is that if you don't love the process, then it won't work for you. 100%.
No doubt. Let that be a lesson to the Philadelphia 76ers. But yeah, it's been a wild journey for you, and of course you got the chance to see the some of the best Quidditch that's ever been played, especially at the collegiate level. You make this transition. You play at UT. Give me like a full breakdown of everything, like in terms of like the most memorable moments when you were a Longhorn, when you were on AQ as well. I'll take that too.
Okay, so I remember when I first got onto AQ, it was after my first semester at UT. I had missed tryouts during the fall semester, and so I figured I don't know why I didn't think that I could just be like, oh hey guys, I missed tryouts. Like, can I still come try out?
Right,
but I was
right,
like,
right.
it's next semester. And so I did, and I'm happy I did because like I loved playing on AQ. I loved playing with Augie. Who's another, everybody knows who Augie is, but I've been fortunate to be surrounded.
For the unindoctrinated, Augie Monroe is considered, he hates it when you call it, he hates it when you say it to him, but the fact is he's probably one of the greatest, he probably is the greatest Quidditch player of all time, and I think he's an 11-time champion between IQA World Cup, US Quidditch, and MLQ all together. I think he's like an 11-time champion, but you know he hates it when you bring it up. Makes sense.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. And so I had Augie around me. I had Simone, and even while I was at Baylor, I played like with David Gilbert and Steffi Hoffman, and like there were a whole bunch of people that like I've just seen, even though I've had like short little stints in different places. And so making the transition to Heat was, it was great, like just being exposed to the Quidditch world and getting out there and just meeting more people and learning a lot.
Yeah, and when you, like you mentioned before, you make a transition to the club level, you joined Texas Hill Country Heat, and they were on the path to going back to the national championship game, it seems like again. My question has to be to you is, why THC, and like what was that selection process like for you, because there's a lot of UT alums spread out across the board when it comes to like club teams in the Southwest, but what made Heat the choice for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. So for me, Heat, like when I chose that team, when they appeared, first of all, like I instantly loved their playing style. And when I played at UT, we played against them several times, and those are some of my best Quidditch games ever. Just like I could feel like their playing style would like completely match mine. So I liked that, like under Simone and the college Quidditch, we had all that structure and guidance, which is what I needed to set that foundation. But I feel like when I started playing for Heat, like just seeing like the different styles, like I instantly liked that. UT has a lot more like controlled and like there's a plan, like follow the plan. And Heat really plays into your athleticism. And I'm not like, I do my best to like, follow the system, but my tendencies are to kind of just like run with that raw energy, So I really like the playing style. And then like the people that I've met, like I never like spoken to half of them before, but like they're all amazing people. Like so many people that were like on Team USA, and just like the community as well. Like I wanted to just try something new, and I did, and I'm happy that I did. Unfortunately, like my Quidditch career has been like riddled with injuries, and I think bodybuilding, taking kind of like this whole Corona thing has like forced us to take time off Quidditch. But having those injuries and like getting back into training for bodybuilding and like the physical therapy has helped me like get back into a healthier place. So I'm really excited to see how like now that I know how to take care of my body better and not just pretend as if my injuries don't exist. Don't do that, guys.
I was gonna say, this is a PSA to literally every Quidditch player ever. So just a heads up. Take it from a personal trainer who is a like an award-winning bodybuilder. Your injuries are real, and you need to treat them as if they do exist. But yeah, Olive, like you were mentioning before, taking that time, and I know it's hard, especially in the course of a season. Everybody wants to play all the time, and they think like, well, I can breathe, so of course I can play Quidditch, right? And everything like that. So what is, have you had like recurring injuries or anything like that, or is it always something different?
It's kind of been a little bit of both, actually. So I've had like a recurring knee injury in my right knee, and it started like all the way since I was on AQ,
Right.
and yeah, so it was just like a little bit of like everything. And I took care of that for a bit. It got better, but if it doesn't heal completely, and you start playing again, and then something happens, and I was tackled on that same knee like multiple times. I remember like at regionals, like after like maybe it was the second or third game on the second day. I don't remember when it was, but something happened. I got out and I was like so frustrated because why am I hurt again? I can't play. But that just taught me that I went back too soon. So it's really important to give yourself all the time that you need to recuperate. So I've had like a foot injury and like knee stuff. But we're doing better now, and I'm excited.
And since you talked about what you've been doing in terms of training in the span of this quarantine, I take that as a segue into a better question. I know there's a lot of people in Quidditch that are constantly trying to get into shape or trying to stay in shape. So do you have like any overall tips? I would start with like dietary tips, because I know that's the number one thing that most people can control, whether they have access to a gym, whether they have access to resistance bands, or whether they can do body weight exercises even when they're hurt. Like dietary choices are something that we make every single day. Like, you're never on a diet. A diet is literally whatever you eat, and it is your choice as to what it is. So what are like some of the basics that people should be trying to do on a daily basis, eating wise, dietary wise, for consumption that can go a long way in terms of helping them get to a better state of fitness, whether it be a lower heart rate, making sure that their workouts are actually giving them gains and everything like that.
Good question. So for food, from a first perspective, I would say, first of all, being hydrated. And I know we talk about how water is so important all the time, but it really is a lot more important than it's emphasized. And I feel like we should emphasize the disadvantages of being dehydrated a lot more than we advertise the benefits of being hydrated. Because like the cognitive function that we lose as a result of being like just slightly dehydrated is a lot more than we realize. And so when you're cranky or in a bad mood or just feeling unmotivated, you're more than likely dehydrated and you don't even realize it. So drinking your water, important. And I would say, like, don't ever buy into any fad diet. Anyone that ever tells you that some crazy diet is going to get you to something in X amount of days, or like it's going to get you there in 2 weeks, or like, it's a lie. It's false advertising, and don't believe it. It's not going to be safe.
They don't know your body.
It's not going to be safe if it even works, but it's probably not going to work. So just realizing that everything takes time, being patient, and don't buy into any fad diet, but try to make it important to just get your macronutrients in. So don't cut out like your protein, your fats, or your carbohydrates. And I know we talked about carbs earlier and like what bodybuilders do to get lean. But what bodybuilders do to get lean is different from what a regular person should be doing, because that's also very calculated. So making sure you're getting in all your macros, just like your protein, fats, and carbs, getting in your vegetables with almost every single meal as much as you can. And then I would say,
I was going to say, if you need to know what your macros are based off like your height and weight, you can literally type in like macronutrients calculator, and you can get like, you can take your metrics, type it in, and it will tell you what those macros should be like in terms of proteins, carbs, and fats every single day for you, so you can get like a gist of what you should be consuming.
Yeah. That's really good. That's a good guideline. But I would say take those with a grain of salt. If you're really trying to like get to a specific goal, then consult a professional, because there's reasons why things are personalized. So a machine obviously can't tell the full story. So it's a good guideline. Definitely should tell you like a good range for the numbers you should be aiming for. So that's great advice. And the last thing I want to say is like your meal timing before your sleep and then just like when you wake up. So you want to just try to keep your body on a regular schedule for food. Our bodies like to work on routine. So when we switch things up too much, our bodies kind of like freeze because they don't know what to do next. So just try to keep your meals regular and try not to eat, 2 to 3 hours before bed. It just saves you a lot. Don't snack at night. Just go back to sleep. Drink some water and go back to bed.
Yeah. So Olive, another thing to ask about in terms of workouts, pre and post stuff, whether it be like pre-workout, which by the way, if you're just like a regular person, you don't need to be taking pre-workout. But like in terms of what you should be eating before workouts, or most importantly, like what you should be eating after workouts to refuel your body in terms of the resources that have burned out. You have any tips on that?
Oh yeah. So after a workout, well, before a workout, if you're eating like about 2 hours, you can eat like a regular meal, nothing too heavy, because when your blood is like still processing that food, all the blood is like in your stomach. And so if you go and start working out, then you might cause yourself indigestion just because of what your body is still processing. So if you're going to eat right before a workout, then I would suggest like quick digesting carbs. So like sugars, like your fruits, things that will like directly convert to energy, or like, an exercise like drink or like a Powerade or whatever. And those have electrolytes as well. So you want to be hydrating before and after. And after you eat, you want to get your protein, some good carbohydrates, and your fats and vegetables. So just try to get a good sized meal after a workout, about like an hour to 2 hours after a workout.
And in terms of how you should be splitting your workouts up, you have like a 7-day period to get workouts in. People are trying to get in better shape. How many days a week should they be working out? How many days a week should they be resting? And then how should they split their workouts up? Should they be doing full body workouts? Should they be doing an upper and lower body day and a core day and everything like that? Any just like general guidelines for anybody out there who's trying to get in better physical shape?
Okay, yeah. So if your goal is to lose weight, then I would recommend doing full body workouts, just compound exercises. And I would recommend everyone get into strength training because it's really good for you long term and now. And the great plus is that you can sculpt your physique to anything you want it to be. So I would say use strength training, but full body workouts if your goal is to lose weight. If you're at the point where you're trying to tone your physique a little more, then I would say then you can do a longer split. So you can do like maybe like a 5-day split. You do like a pull day where you do like back, biceps, and like hamstrings. And then another day where you do like, other parts of your legs or like chest, triceps. And then you do like shoulders. So get like, 2 rest days in the week. Try to put your rest days like in between a couple of days of exercise. So don't just go like 6 days at a stretch and then have 1 rest day. So like, you do like 2 or 3 days, have a rest day, do some yoga, go for a walk, something relaxing, go for a swim, just like get your muscles relaxed. It's really, really important to stretch.
Say that one more time for the people in the back, please. Olive.
It is essential to stretch. Like not stretching is the worst thing you can do for yourself besides not drinking water. I don't know, like those are really, really bad. Those are so important.
I will say this. If you stretch and you don't drink water, you're going to need to stretch a lot more because you're going to pull something. Like, I mean, it's astounding, like, it's real simple stuff like how stretching and drinking water can go such a long way, even if you're not working out and you're trying to, like, rehab injuries and stuff like that, making sure that your body's hydrated so that, like, sudden jerking motions don't end up with you grabbing your lower back because something popped or something like that. So
exactly, and cramping and things like that. Like, it's so important. So stay hydrated, guys.
And that's all the fitness questions I had. Unless you have some more tips for the people, I will say this, Olive, I think this is a perfect time to tell people where to find you and your sister before we get into the last part of this interview that is also the serious part, that the serious part about this whole thing. But yeah, tell people where to find you, your sister, and how they can get more information, or how they can get in contact with you and your sister to get more information.
Oh, yeah. So if you want to find me, you can find me on Instagram at Olive the Gains. That's my first name, OliveTheGains. TheGains, Olive the Gains, like all of the gains.
Yes, pretty good play on words. I gotta admit.
Yeah, and my sister is at Yada Fitness, at YAHDA, and it's fitness. And on Facebook, you can find me, you can add me as a friend on Facebook, Olive Jim Daniels, or you can follow my athlete page, Olive Daniels NFF Pro.
Yeah, and Olive gives you some motivation. She doesn't just show you that she's out here killing the game, constantly working out, because I know that can be intimidating for some people, which I've come to learn is like a real thing, Olive. Like, people seeing you constantly working out freaks them out, because they're just like, how do you have all this energy and motivation? And I'm just like, I just be doing it, man. You know, just be out here doing it. Olive does better than me. That's why she has a lot of those shiny medals. That's what she got those shiny medals for, doing it better than most. But Olive, we come to the end of this interview, and it's not even like a down note or a downer or anything like that. But recently, after the murder of George Floyd and the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement again in America, a lot of people in Quidditch have been looking, I would say, internally into the community and looking at the people who have a voice and the people who do not have a voice. You fall into a pretty unique category. You are a black woman who plays a sport that is predominantly white. And I have to ask, is there any time like in this sport is there anything that you've seen in this sport that you feel can make it more welcoming to people of color, and in particular black people? Because if we know anything about black people, when things get a little weird, they make fun of it. And that's just kind of how it is. It's like a cultural thing, because it's already hard being different by being black. So like, why increase that difficulty by being black and then playing a weird sport like Quidditch? So Olive, you have any idea? I know you've probably experienced it inadvertently, advertently, intentionally on many levels. Somebody kind of throwing some prejudice or racism towards your way throughout the course of this sport. Have you come up with any idea when you think about it of how to make this sport more welcoming to people of color?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. I think that a really good way of getting more people of color and especially black people involved in Quidditch. Because for one, like, you see a lot of black people that are really, really talented and could do amazing at this sport. But because of that stigma and that prejudice, they're missing out on a lot, and the community as well. And so I would say, like, for the way that I got into Quidditch, not everyone is as fortunate as me to be as bold and sure of my interests. And because I played sports my entire life, I never felt pressure about being a nerd, because I was an athlete as well. So people never made fun of me for being a nerd because I was an athlete. But because when I went into Quidditch, I had that going for me. And I had my roommate as well, who, like, we were both excited about being nerds together. And most black kids don't have that, like we talked about. And another thing I would say is, like, just putting people and being intentional about putting people that can relate with the communities in front. Like having, other black people like at recruiting events. And it doesn't just mean as the black people on your team to come recruit just because they're black. It means, like, what stake do they have in the team? Does their opinion matter? Like, are their voices really heard? Like, are they really a part of it? Like, just being more intentional about, like, reaching out to people and just making them feel welcome. And then I would say, like actively recruiting, not just going to the places that all the white kids hang out. And I know that can be uncomfortable, because just being in a new space with people that, like, just different cultures, and you're not sure how they're going to receive you. I think it takes being brave and stepping into those places regardless, like where all the black kids hang out, like talking to them about Quidditch. Like, you don't know what they're going to say. Like, have an open mind. Just
I'm like, come on, guys. Like, Harry Potter didn't become a $1 billion movie
franchise. It wasn't all just
it was people from all over, from every corner of the fucking planet. I'm sorry, it's just how it is. I'm just saying, like, there are plenty of people of color who like Quidditch.
Exactly. And I want to emphasize that, like, I was not even, like, I was obsessed with Harry Potter before I even came to this country for the first time ever. So, right. Like, that reached me where I was. So it's kind of, like, ignorant and lazy of us to only assume that these are the people that, can be a part of this team. And then I saw, this is something that I had as an afterthought that was like, just being aware that of just like differences in communities and like just income inequality, and knowing that Black and brown students are more prone to having those, like being on scholarships. Like, so people coming in to play Quidditch, like, okay, yeah, it's all good and fun, but until you have to pay like $100 and you're like, okay, like, like that's registration. That's, I got to pay fees for my club. I got to pay this. I got to pay that. I got to go to tournaments. And all of a sudden you're like, I can't afford this.
Right.
So I think we need to be a little more intentional about creating fundraising. And I know we try to do that, but we try to do that in a way that, oh yeah, let's do it and like let it help. But like I think it should be a lot more like intentional. We should fight for like, like petition a lot more for programs like this, right? And I would say that our attitude and our composure about our sport in general plays a lot into this. Because, Quidditch started out as a fun little game from a movie or whatever. And a lot of people are connected to it because of that. And that's a great thing. I don't see it as a bad thing. But I also see the fact that we refuse to like let that go. It's like we still see it as a joke. But I'm like, we're real athletes. We should not do that. Because if we see it as a joke.
Concussions, man. Like.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, so if we treat it as a joke, then how is anyone else supposed to take it seriously? You know what I mean?
And there's still a whole section of the community that I feel like, and maybe this is me misreading it, let me know on Twitter or whatever, or hit me up on Facebook or whatever. There's a section of the community that if they took it seriously, like a sport that like top tier athletes play in, they feel like they would get washed out of it and they wouldn't have a place in the sport. And it's like, it's that group of people that are just like, well, the beauty of Quidditch is that anybody can play. I'm like, yeah, anybody can play, but we're all trying to play like the best that we can. And like we're all like that doesn't seem like, sometimes that comes off like that's not the goal for a lot of people. And I get it. I come from if you know anything about the Cosmos, we were a joke for like 3 years, right? Like we were a joke until like Teddy Costa showed up and helped us get on track in terms of like getting a bunch of wins. Last year, we had an insane amount of games that came down to a snitch pool that we lost. I'll talk about that another day. It hurts my heart to this day. But there's just so much of it of like, we're here to have fun. And I get it. You're definitely here to have fun, but it doesn't mean you can't be serious about winning. Like there's a blend between it, because I feel like there's this giant gap between the athletes who only know winning, right? There's like the guys who are in this sport that only know winning, and then make it not fun for the people who are here to have fun. And it'd be nice if we win. Yeah, it comes off like you're not taking the sport seriously. But yeah, like you were saying, like how are you gonna garner respect from people outside of the sport, or like garner respect from anybody else if you don't even take yourself seriously, or you don't respect yourself in the sense of like there's a win on the line, and yeah, we love our teammates through and through, but we got to get this done together. Like there's no only way we're gonna win this game is together. And we all need to be on the same page, and that page needs to be, every time we step on the field, we're trying to win. So yeah,
exactly. 100%. Like I think it's a lazy mentality to say that, like, just because you want it to be fun, it can be fun and we can win. Winning is even more fun. Winning is a lot more fun. Like if you're not miserable about losing, like you'll be a lot more motivated to play again. And I think like the big thing about that is that like. Okay, so I'm going to cut into a personal story of mine, and it's related to bodybuilding, but it just, just talking about like the value of losing and having the right mindset. So
a loss will teach you a lot more than a win will.
It will. It really will. And like, so I want to share like my first competition that I talked about earlier. It was in June of 2019, and I had planned to do a different show before that one, actually. I wanted to do a natural show. So I wanted to compete in a show that was like scheduled 2 weeks before that one. And the idea was this show is for natural, so they won't be testing for steroids. So, it might be less competitive than the other show that I know 100% they won't be testing. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do it. But as it happened, that natural show got rescheduled to 2 weeks after the original one that I planned to do. And so I had to do that show regardless. And so that was my first show. And I competed in 2 classes. And so I competed as a novice, which is for people who have never competed before or had never won a first or second place in their class before. And then I also competed in the open category. And it's only in the open category that you can compete for a spot to compete for nationals. So you can only get qualified if you win or come second in open. And so I did those two categories, and I won both. And so I came back afterwards because there were different classes for novice as well and open. And I won the novice overall. And when it got time for the open overall, like I was they had called me like back to back on stage. So it was like novice A or like novice B. And then they were like, okay, you guys have to pose and do a little routine. And so when you're posing, you're literally working out, like you're flexing your muscles and you're sweating and doing all of that. And so I had done that like 3 times in a row because I was in like those two classes. And then they finally called me back and they're like, okay, do the overall. And I was like, okay, fine. And I have the video where like they literally took the trophy from me on stage and told me, all right, go right back. And like, you're going to compete again. Yeah. So at that point I was like, oh my God, like I did not expect all of this.
Right.
Yeah. And so we started posing for the overall, for the open, and they had us turn around and around and around and around again. And at this point, like I was literally
turning
shaking
around while
and
flexing literally every muscle in your body.
And you're doing it, acting like it doesn't cost a thing. And so it was a lot, and I like was like shaking, and I could remember watching that video, and I could literally see the point where like I lost it, and I did not get the open overall. It wasn't a big deal. Like I'd won my class, I'd won both of my classes, and the novice overall. But that like taught me that like you can't take this for granted. Like you can't not be prepared. What if this happens again? And like 2 shows later, after I got my second show, I turned pro. And then the third show was my pro debut, and just the whole like process of like turning us around during posing, where they were like the judging, like it took as long as that whole thing before. And so because I lost that overall in that first show, I went and I watched that video a billion times, and I like fixed my posing. I practiced for like hours. Like I practiced over and over again, and like just holding those poses and being there for a while. And when I went for my pro debut, like it was so natural. I wasn't like struggling to be there anymore. Like I was shaking for sure because it's a workout, but like I was a lot more confident. I was a lot more prepared, and I won that. And so losing that little like open overall meant a lot more to me than like, you know, like, I'm sorry, it meant a lot less because it helped me win my pro debut, and I won money of that. And so that was a lot better than like winning, the novice overall and then like coming here and not being prepared. So I just want to say, like, take your losses as a lesson. Don't be a sore loser. Like, it's okay to feel bad about losing because you want to do better, but find out why you lost and get better. That's it. Just get better.
Nobody's interested in excuses. We know this, especially not in sports. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Olive Jim Daniels dropping the bombs, dropping the knowledge, dropping the gems for you. And I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. And it's the first episode of the Big Man Bias. I think the next person I'm going to have to talk to is a guy named Gary Taylor. Some of you guys know him, Tiger. He's a very vocal individual, is the least I can say on that one, and talk about his journey. I think he's been playing Quidditch for like 10 years. But Olive, I cannot thank you enough for coming on to this show, making the first episode so pivotal, so important, setting the bar pretty high, as you normally do. Olive, tell them where to find you on Instagram and Facebook and wherever else you are one more time, and your sister and everything that you guys are putting together in case they want to reach out for some sort of fitness advice. So really have somebody in their Instagram feed that's constantly, dropping his inspiration every single day.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Thank you so much again, Ashton, for having me. Once again, guys, you can find me on Instagram at Olive the Gains. And that's my first name, The Gains. My other Instagram, the personal one with all the fitness stuff, is at Olive_JD, same as my Twitter. And you can find my sister on Instagram at Yada Fitness, YAHDA Fitness. And you can follow our team, our competition team for bodybuilding if you're interested in that. We share a lot of fitness and just nutrition advice as well, and just motivation. at Hardware Maniacs. And the hardware represents the trophies because we like trophies.
As we mentioned before, I too am a fan of trophies. I appreciate you coming on the show, and this is the part where I bid you adieu, and then I do a spiel about this podcast at the very end of it. Thanks, Olive. I'll talk to you in a little bit to everything, all that kind of stuff like that. Hopefully, we're playing Quidditch at some point in the near future, but Houston's about to go back on lockdown all over again. So what can we really hope for other than to see tomorrow? So that's what I'm hoping for everybody who's listening to this. You see tomorrow and the day after that and many more days after it as well. Thanks for coming on, Olive. It was great to hear from one of the best Houston athletes in the game right now and to talk to you.
Thank you so much, Ashton. Bye.
Later. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. First episode of Big Man Bias is in the books. I'm Ashton Jeanlewis, and like I mentioned before, I play for the Houston Cosmos Quidditch Club. I do a lot of rambling, but I just wanted to start off this show the only way that I really know how, and be quite honest. I mentioned this on Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter, some of you guys do if you're listening to this podcast. I kind of don't want to do this thing. I wholeheartedly believe that I've been offered this podcast because of the recent unrest and recent focus on diversity, and I feel like I've been offered this podcast because I'm black, essentially. And if that is the case, that's the case. Because I may not want to do this podcast, but like I mentioned before on Twitter, and I'll mention it here again, I was offered this podcast, or asked to do this podcast when I was watching an episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender. And it is the episode, if you know the show very well, is the episode called The Crossroads. It's part 1 and part 2. It's probably the best episodes in the history of either one of the shows from Last Airbender to Legend of Korra, even though Legend of Korra is the better show overall. Hit me on Twitter. I will eviscerate you in this debate. Anyway, watching Avatar: The Last Airbender, it's the Crossroads episode. Aang, who is the Avatar, who's supposed to be able to master all 4 elements, is trying to put together his chakra, his energy flows in his body. And one of them is called the Sound Chakra. And it's called the Sound Chakra in real life, but it's the Sound Chakra, and it is powered by truth and blocked by lies. Aang at one point denied that he was the Avatar, right? And the guru who's helping him unlock these chakras basically goes off on this tangent about, like, not even a tangent. He basically explains, like, dude, you can't deny who you are. That's a part of your life. Whether you want it to be or not, it is a part of it. And for you to truly be who you are, you have to embrace it. I have to start, and I'm not saying I'm the Avatar. This is not me coming out as the Avatar master of all 4 elements. But it is something that resonated with me at the moment, because I knew the second that I saw that message what that message was about. And I'm sure I'm going to get some messages after this airs on the 8th Man or whatever. But I just wanted everybody to know that I got to embrace more of the fact that I am one of the few black people who plays Quidditch. And I don't really have too much to say about the sport as a whole. I don't have too much to say about which direction we should go. I'm 28 years old, turned 28 today, and have no idea how to make this place a better place for the athletes that are to come. And maybe other people do. And I think part of the path of this podcast is me trying to piece together maybe a little bit from each one of the guests that come on here that are in one of the margins for Quidditch. Maybe we all find a way for them to feel a little bit more welcome than other people that look and act and are like them can feel more welcome into the sport. Today I had on Olive Jim Daniels. She's a black woman from Nigeria who was a Harry Potter fan long before she ever played a single second of Quidditch. That is a very unique background in the sport that we play. Like I mentioned before, this sport is dominated by white people, and that's not a problem. But there is room for people of all colors and all creeds to join in on this sport and feel the joy that we all feel playing it. Anyway, I'm not going to say too much on the podcast. This is probably the longest that you'll hear me talk as an individual. I want to spend this podcast hearing the voices of the people who feel like their voices are not heard in Quidditch, whether it be because of media coverage, whether it be because they don't want to hop in the Facebook forums and talk endlessly in Facebook comments. and they just want to speak out about how they feel and how Quidditch has made them feel, whether it be joyful or absolutely isolated. And I hope that this podcast, one, enlightens me to other people's struggles, and two, makes the sport a little bit better, makes the community a little bit more inclusive than it already is, right? And maybe we can bring those goals that are written out on Major League Quidditch and USQ letterhead of being the most inclusive sport on the planet. Maybe we bring those goals that are written out into reality. And I don't know if a podcast is going to be able to do something like that, but goddamn it, I'm going to try. Anyway, I'm out. This is the Big Man Bias episode 1. Shout out to Jim Daniels. I love Jim Daniels of Texas Hill Country Heat. Make sure you follow THC Heat on Twitter and on Instagram. They're pretty fun. They're pretty fun in season and everything like that. Make sure you stay on your grind. Make sure you drink your water, and most importantly, wash your hands. Actually, wash your whole body. Wash your hands more importantly, most importantly, and keep it kicking.